afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this workshop on creating a professional resume led by experienced job readiness coach Rebecca Mazin, part of the Westchester Library Association's professional development series. We'll meet Rebecca in just a few moments, but first I have a few announcements for you. My name is Megan Fenton, and I'm a librarian for adult services and programs at the Bedford Hills Free Library. This year, I and Krishna Horrigan of the Westchester Library System are co-chairing the WLA Professional Development Committee and working to bring timely and relevant professional development opportunities like this one to the library community here in Westchester. I'd like to take a moment to thank the WLA Executive Board, President Giovanna Fiorini Iannacci, Vice President Kim Stucco, Secretary Joanna Rooney, and Treasurer Allison Robbins, as well as the entire WLA board, all of whose hard work and support make these programs possible. I'd also like to send a big thank you to our presenter, Rebecca Mazin, for sharing her time and expertise with us this afternoon. After today's presentation, each registrant will be sent a PDF continuing education certificate, where there'll be a space for you to fill in your name and keep for your professional records. Please also note that we'll have another workshop coming up on December 9th, so next week, I think, co-hosted with New York Presbyterian Lawrence Hospital, which will focus on staying healthy while working from home over the coming months. And you can find a registration in the chat. We hope to see you there. Krishna and I would also like to hear from you. We would like to get an idea of how library professionals in Westchester would like to continue addressing the pressing issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice across our communities and within our spaces. WLA would like to get a better understanding of how our professional development programs may be able to support the professional community doing this important work. Please take a few moments to fill out the survey, which you will find a link to in the chat as well. You will also have an opportunity on that same survey to give us some more general feedback on what kind of programs you'd like to see in the future. And while it may seem too early to start thinking about next year, Krishna and I would also like to remind you of the WLA Professional Development Awards, which are reimbursable awards available for WLA members to pursue professional development opportunities like conferences and continuing education courses. We've begun accepting applications for those awards, and you can find a link to the applications as well as the instructions on the WLA website and in the chat in just a moment. The application deadline is April 16th, 2021, and recipients will be announced at our annual conference in May. Without further delay, my co-chair Krishna is going to take over and introduce you to today's speaker, Rebecca.
Thanks, Megan. I sent the links into the chat, and you pretty much, you did all the introduction I think I need. But everyone who's registered today, you should have received an email with a chapter of the Job Search Toolkit. So that is a toolkit, a little booklet that Rebecca has helped us create and update over the years, just as guidance for the whole job search process. That's something that the Westchester Library System has distributed, and it's something that we're updating currently. But aside from that, Rebecca also acts as the job search coach for the Westchester Library System and for New Rochelle Public Library, where she helps people, anyone from around the county, with their job search needs, whether that's going over a resume, talking about interviewing, finding listings, basically from A to Z. So Rebecca, without further ado, I think I'll pass it over to you. You should be able to screen share whatever you need to share, and we will get started.
Which is great because I have a ton of things to screen share today. And before I open my screen, I do want to say that if you have questions, this isn't a huge group. I've got a lot of information. My recommendation is that you text the question, and Krishna is going to then be the question moderator. We will have a Q&A at the end, but I'd like, again, since there is so much information, don't wait, don't hold all those, don't write them down. Well, you can write
Unless you're writing them down into chat. And
right.
then I will read them out later.
Don't save them all, right?
Yeah.
So how do you create a professional resume? Our goal today, for those of you, either if you're working on a resume yourself or you're helping someone with a resume, whether at the library or outside of the library, we want your resume or that resume not to be at the bottom of the pile. And so some people say that we want a resume to stand out and get noticed. I prefer not to say that we want it to stand out and get noticed. We want it to reach the target. And that's what we're going to talk about, focusing on your resumes and focusing a resume on the target job. I want to launch a poll. Krishna, if we can launch the first poll.
Okay, it should be up.
Yep, it's up. Oh,
So the poll says, when was the last time you wrote and edited your resume? Last week, within the past 6 months, 3 to 5 years ago, or more than 5 years ago? All right. Okay. So it looks like we have just about everyone voting. And I can share the results.
so most of you are in the, actually it's 50-50. Look at that. In this group, half the people have done within the past 6 months, including last week, as I'll say. And the other half, it's 3 to 5 years ago or more than 5 years ago. So for those people who have done your resume 3 to 5 years ago or more than 5 years ago, you're going to see some differences in today's resume style and some of my recommendations. And those of you who've done them more recently within the past last week or past 6 months, including last week, are going to see that maybe I'm hitting the mark or maybe I'm not. But by saying that, I want to say a couple of things. I know Krishna introduced me as the job search coach. I come to this work with a background in human resources. I worked in human resources in manufacturing and in hospitality. And before I began self-employment and doing direct human resources consulting and management training. And I was approached by the Westchester Library System to do some work on job search. It's a long time ago. It's more than 15 years ago. And out of that work grew the job search coaching in the libraries and the job search toolkit. And the edit that we're working on now is actually 1, 2, 3, the 4th edit since it's been done. Originally done. It was originally done somewhere around 2004, 2005, I believe. But there's no date on it, so I don't know. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about resume formats. 2 major types of resume formats are chronological and functional. So the next items, once we talk about formats, one of the biggest concerns, issues, changes to resumes today is that profile or summary that's at the top of the resume. We're going to talk about how do you write that? And part of that, of writing that, and including part of all of your resume content today includes keywords. Keywords are those magic words that are picked up by applicant tracking systems or ATS. Applicant tracking systems are the computerized or AI that employers use to cull resumes, to manage and identify resumes. Keywords are also things that employers use to identify talent when they're eyeballing a resume, when they're doing it the human way, not the virtual way. And then once we talk about our profile and our keywords, we're going to talk about how can we write actual resume content that includes specifics. So as Krishna said, we sent you a chapter of the Job Search Toolkit. So the Job Search Toolkit, this chapter that you're getting that you got is a galley version. It's been reformatted with different graphics, but this is the very latest version. We're hoping it'll be up on First Find, accessible through the Westchester Library System website, hopefully within the next couple weeks, I would think. And if that's wrong, Elena will cut my knees off. No, we're very close. There is already a job search toolkit there. It is different. The content has not been edited and the chapter order is different. So I'm not saying the content there is wrong or anything, but that's where we're at. I actually have the chapter on my screen. I could open it, but I may refer to some of these pages. They're in the slides. So the first kind of resume is a chronological resume. The toolkit does not identify a functional resume. It only talks about a chronological resume. And in the job search toolkit, I'm going to show you the sample of the chronological resume that we use. This will take, my transitions will take a sec, only because I have so many things up. Okay. So this is a sample of the chronological resume that is going to be in the new upcoming job search toolkit. This sample is actually taken from, I'm going to be using this in a minute, but it's actually taken from, it's a version of a Google Docs. If you search how to write a resume on Google Docs, or if you search resume templates in Google Docs and Microsoft Word, you'll get a number of them. My concern about so many of the Google Docs and Microsoft Word templates today is they have these colored bars, and I've seen them from candidates. So one of the things I do with employers is I sometimes help them with hiring, may review resumes. And personally, I find those colored bars can be distracting, and I don't know they add to a resume. So this is the format that's going to be in the new job search toolkit. And we'll be looking at this. So a chronological resume basically lists your experience in reverse chronological order. This is a phony person. Education, unless you're a recent grad, is below your experience. They start with a profile or summary. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. You can also put skills and interests on a chronological resume. So that's your 3-cent tour. Again, that's not about specifics. That's really kind of what a format of a chronological resume looks like. So the other kind of resume that you may be interested in, and I'll explain this to you why in a few minutes, is called a functional resume. And unlike a chronological resume, a functional resume takes your experience and puts the focus of the resume on your experience, not your chronological work. Now, the advantages of a chronological resume are they're most frequently used by a career changer or a job changer. So, and I'm just making this up, this may be wrong. So let's say I have been in a public library system and I want to work in a university library system and I've got some of the skills. A chronological resume may be more likely to help me get there. So a chronological resume starts with 3 to 5 competencies, and you list your accomplishments under those competencies. The first page of a chronological resume also has a profile. In this particular example, I've got skills as well. And then the second page of your chronological resume has your employment history, your education. It could have other information. And in this case, we put in also some other computer skills. I do have one other format of a chronological resume.
So Rebecca, while you're transitioning, can I ask, is there a benefit to keeping it to one singular page or having a 2-sided resume? Does it make a significant difference?
Excellent question. A functional resume is always going to be more than one page. It doesn't mean it's exactly 2 full pages. You'll notice both of these functional resumes. The first example I gave you was a page and a half. This one's like a page and a quarter. I don't think it's a page and a third. A resume length, resumes need to be as long as they need to be to tell the story. Librarian resume may be a little longer, but that doesn't mean they're 12 pages long. I don't think they should be any longer than 2 pages. The third page on a resume may be additional education exposures, experiences or certifications. I think a page and a half, the rule that stick to 1 page, that itself is a little old fashioned because most employers, if you're submitting a resume through an online application, it's not necessarily coming out as a single page anyway, so it doesn't matter. If you're hand submitting it, it's as long as it makes sense why you have the second page. You know, maybe the second page is experience that is relevant, but not entirely. So that goes back to one of the recommendations is you should not go back any more than 10 years in your experience. It could be 15, I think. And for some of the librarian positions, it may be a little longer. But when someone says, well, I worked there 30 years ago or 25 years ago, and it's perfect experience, if I start asking them what their job they did there, is the job you did there 20 years ago or 25 years ago relevant to what you're doing today? And they'll look at me and they go, oh no, it's totally different. So that length question, there's no hard and fast rule. as long as there's not information in that resume that doesn't make sense. But for a functional resume, it's always going to be more than a page, because the competencies are in the first page. It's the competencies, a summary, and a profile. And then the employment history and the education, other information is always going to be in the second page, because the functional resume is designed to have an employer look at your outcomes as opposed to your job history. If you're a career changer, for example, or you're trying to broaden your exposure. Good questions. So those are the two basic forms of resumes. So as I said, that functional resume focuses on competencies, not positions held, and it's very valuable for career changers. For either resume, this resume, I like to talk in positives, but before we move to positives, these are some things that need to be taken off your resume. And if these are really universal today. An AOL email address ages you. Recently, I met a millennial that had an AOL email address, and I wanted to ask, but I decided not to. The objective at the top of your resume, it should not be an objective, it's a profile or a summary. References will be furnished upon request, no longer needs to be there. Take it out. Complete job descriptions, the worst resumes I see, someone takes their job description, copies and pastes it onto a resume. I shouldn't say any employers. Many employers can spot a resume that's a job description a mile away, as fast as they can spot a canned cover letter. They're cousins of each other, I suppose. So take this content out. So the job search toolkit in chapter 5, page 1, one of the most important things is that top box on your resume. And we're going to talk a little more about the address in a minute. But if you look here, I really highly recommend that you use your first name and your last name in your email address. And I really recommend that you have a separate email address for job search. That way, job search information doesn't get buried or lost. It certainly should never be in a work email. It doesn't get buried and lost. And you can go to that site when you're job searching. You're less likely to get distracted about the latest Black Friday sale. So, and if you're looking for a way to get your first name and last name in a Gmail account, because a lot of people find Gmail is very clean and easy to use, first name, last name, and your area code. I have not found a person that this doesn't work for. It's always worked. You definitely don't want an email address that has anything that's personal or cute or your age. If someone's a recent college grad, I also really advise that they get away from that edu address that they're still using from their school. So another question I frequently get from that top part of our resume is, should you include your home address? If you had asked me this question probably as late as a year ago, I probably would have said yes, because employers need to find you. There are fewer and fewer home addresses on resumes. I do think it's fine that you put, my recommendation, however, would be then that you put city and state, and that your area code reflects where you live. So I interviewed someone, this is a couple of years ago, for an employer, and he had moved to the New York metropolitan area from Hawaii. So he had a Hawaiian area, I guess it's not an area, Hawaiian area code. It's an area code from Hawaii and his phone number. And if he had just had his name and his email address and that area code, I would have not known where that person lived. So if you have an area code, I'm not saying go change your phone, but if you have a phone number that reflects somewhere that you first got your phone, because we all have the, I don't know, it was Florida, then put in your city and state. So for example, let's look at my phony resume, my Bill Smith's resume, and look at that top box. So Bill right now has his address, his name, his home address, his phone number. There's no reason. Here's another thing I suppose I could take off. There's no reason to put in landline and cell phone today. Put in whatever phone number you're going to answer. There's no reason for two. So Bill Smith's resume today, I think would also be perfectly fine if I put it in the right spot. If we took out, if you're not going to have an address, it would be fine if you did it this way. But my recommendation, if you're not going to put an address, at least put a city and state. The next best thing is just phone number and email address. So Bill Smith has a 914 email address. So here's the content that you do want to put in your resume: a profile or a summary, keywords, and specific accomplishments, both in a functional resume or a chronological resume. So this is also described in the chapter 5 that I gave you on pages 3 to 4, is how to use keywords. So your profile, so we're going to talk now about how you create your profile. It's going to include keywords. It's going to answer the question, tell me about yourself. I highly recommend that you use the same statement across multiple platforms, but at the same time, it may be customized for different resumes. And what I mean by that is if you've got a LinkedIn profile, and we're going to get to that in a minute, and you've got a resume, that profile and that summary statement on LinkedIn should be the same thing. And it's the answer to the question, tell me about yourself. If someone were to ask me that, tell me about yourself, I would say I'm a human resources professional with experience both in-house and externally, and I work with employers to create success stories in the workplace. So that, mine was a little short. It could be a little more specific, and we're going to get to examples again, but you want that same statement across platforms, but it may also be customized. So my made up example before of someone trying to move from being a librarian in a public library to a university setting, they may customize their profile to highlight those kinds of outcomes or accomplishments that would be more important in a university setting. So let's look, actually, while we're launching So where do you find keywords? There's a couple of places where you can find keywords, and we're going to look at them now directly. And the first one that we're going to look at is, it's called onetonline.org. It's a federal job site. It's a federal site that has job descriptions. The second one we're going to look at is actual job postings. You can also type into a search bar the job title, resume, and keywords. To be honest with you, I did this for librarian, and I don't know that I got great results. When we could do it live now, you can all practice. What I got when you type in librarian resume keywords, you get articles and things to read. I think it adds another step. I think it's easier if you go to ONET and to job postings. And let me show you what I mean. I'm going to show you what the ONET site looks like.
Sounds a lot like search engine optimization for a website.
Yeah,
Keyword
I mean,
optimization.
That's one way to think about it, because I've got to open it. Give me one sec. Because this is what happens when you try to do a program with 15 things open. So there it is. because I think that there has been so much written about keywords, and that's why you're getting those articles if you search librarian keywords. So ONET is an occupational indexing site. So if I go to ONET, it's onetonline.org. I type in librarian. Look, I did that already. I click on search. So so it's going to give you a list of librarian jobs, and then it goes to related jobs. So it was fun. It's interesting because I did this a few weeks ago. This changed since a few weeks ago. Librarians and media collection specialists. There's a bright outlook for them. That made me very happy. So if you click on that description. So here I now find a plethora of keywords. Keywords are those things that make this job different. Their skills and their experience that an individual sees. So what are keywords in this job description? So there's technology skills here. So one keyword could be teaching, for example. One keyword would be evaluate materials. Book reviews might be a keyword. Database is definitely a keyword. Database is one word. So these little yellow means that they're hot skills. How cool is that? So some of these different software things may be things they're either keywords, or if you have them, they would be in your skills section of your resume. So knowledge, here's some more keywords. Definitely customer service, providing, I would call it customer service. Training design might be, depending on the job. Speaking, so this is actually pretty basic, but communicating orally and in writing. So interpersonal relationships will be very important. And we could be, but I wouldn't, you're not going to create an entire resume that's just keywords. If you find 10 or 15 out of here, it could be independence, it could be building relationships, could be adaptability and flexibility. You're in a very, very good shape. So let's see also from a job posting. If you remember from that slide, the second way, and tell me if this is coming up. Am I still sharing my internet? Do we have a link?
Yeah, I can see
job
it.
posting? Good. Okay, so I picked and same thing, I had to find a job posting that was current. Okay, so the city of Mountain View, I picked one in Mountain View because I didn't want you all applying for a job this week if you're just doing this for informational purposes. So how do you find keywords in a job posting? So this job posting starts with descriptions of why we want to work in Mountain View. And then it also keeps going. So what's the role? Friendly, here's some keywords: confident, friendly, confident, energetic, motivated. Those are good. Here's some more. Here's a lot more. What you'll do: public service, marketing, outreach activities, definitely keywords. Here we got this is like a mother load: envision, plan, and implement programs, serve on committees, cultivate partnerships. Why are you a match? You're passionate about libraries, excellent customer service skills. You know how to talk to people, so communication skills, understanding of technology, connect people to information, communicate effectively in writing and in person. Remember, we saw that in the ONET site as well. Familiar with the latest trends in marketing, again, social media, those were in the ONET site as well. And you like bringing your talents to collaboration. So once you have, you can do this a couple of ways. You can write those keywords down, you can print this out, you can highlight them, but you're going to take those keywords and you're now going to put them in a profile. And I kind of made one of the ways, the next poll, if you can launch the next poll, Krishna, about LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Let me change that to poll 2. Okay. I've launched it. So it says, do you have a LinkedIn profile? And if so, when was the last time you updated it? Last week, within the past 6 months, 3 to 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, or I don't have a LinkedIn profile. It's looking pretty even.
Okay, good. Yeah, it is pretty even, although more of you have, only 30% of you have updated your LinkedIn profile within the past 6 months, and then 70% of you have either not done it 3 to 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, or they don't have a LinkedIn profile. If you are looking for a job, and here's one of the ways that I identify whether the position you're looking for, you should have a LinkedIn profile. Are there people with similar positions on LinkedIn? And are there job postings on LinkedIn? And for librarians, it's yes and yes, because I'm going to show you some examples of LinkedIn profiles for librarians right now. I'm not going to go through how to do it. I'll tell you why I'm using these examples in a minute, but you'll see that there's a ton of job postings. So I got 1,000 results for librarians in the United States. And my results could be different than any of yours because this is based on my algorithm. If I go a little further down, there's probably human resources results because I've got a human resources background. So LinkedIn is finding jobs that I might have some matching skills with. I don't know, you could get 1,500 jobs and you could get different ones, but we're not talking about how to find a job on LinkedIn. We're talking about how to use it for identifying profiles. So here's what I did to look at some really good profiles. One of the other ways to read, if you're like, oh my God, where do I go? How do I do this? Go onto LinkedIn and look at some librarians. And here's what I did to find these librarians. I went on people in LinkedIn and I just typed in librarian and I typed in the location. Because for our purposes here, I didn't want to find people that were necessarily like on this call today, shall we say. So once you do that, you're going to get a list of librarians and you can look at those individual LinkedIn profiles to look at what did they write for that summary. So I've done that work for you. So I'm going to show you the first one that I thought had a very good summary. This is Lisa Frank. She's in Delaware. So in LinkedIn, the summary or the profile is called About. So in this case, it's a 2-sentence description that answers the question, tell me about yourself. And it answers that question that would go in the About. This can be the same exact profile on a resume. So Lisa wrote, experienced librarian with a demonstrated history of working in the government administration industry, skilled in Microsoft Office, creative problem solver, client service management, eVision, LibCal, and social media, strong community and social services professional with a master's degree, focused in library and information science from Drexel University. In those 2 sentences, I now have a picture of what Lisa does and what her background is. She did a really good job. I'm not sure why she has a picture of a sailboat, but that's another issue. That's another LinkedIn issue. But she did a really good job of summarizing. So that profile is 2 sentences, maybe 3, that summarizes you for a potential employer. I've got a couple of other examples. This person works in New York's metropolitan area, successful informational professional with experience in cataloging, metadata, content access and delivery, and electronic resource management in both academic and corporate library environments. A little shorter, doesn't mention his education, but I think it's also fine. It helps me understand without going any further what Lee does. Because an employer, not necessarily, yes, you want to put, so let's go back to Lisa for a minute. She's got keywords in there. Probably government administration would probably be a keyword for her. Creative problem solving is a keyword. Client services is a keyword. Social community and social services is a keyword. So they've got keywords in there. His are different because he's got a different background. So an employer, if your resume is not going through an applicant tracking system, and if an employer and someone is seeing it in front of them, that profile is the first thing they're going to see. Someone opens up your LinkedIn page, the About is the first thing they're going to see. So here's another one that I thought was pretty good. Experienced assistant librarian with a demonstrated history of working in the information services industry, skilled in research, event planning, customer service, Microsoft Word, and information technology, strong education professional with a master's focused in English literature. So he put his keywords all on the second line: research, event planning, customer service, Microsoft Word, and information technology. I'm going to show you one more because I think just when we're not talking about LinkedIn, you can change this picture on LinkedIn. And this is not the only librarian that has books back there, by the way. It's very easy to do. That's actually in the job search toolkit, the update, but we recommend you change the picture too. So Ariana's got a really good about as well. Experienced librarian with a demonstrated international work history of successful programming, keyword, community building, keyword, collection development, keyword, and information literacy outreach. Skills in organizational development, social media, academic research, research support, collection development, public relations, and library management. So she doesn't have a ton of connectors between her keywords, but it still gives me a very good indication of what Ariana can do. So what questions do you have about writing this profile?
So I got a good question in the chat. Is there a place to look for civil service job descriptions or keywords that might be more important for people who are going for civil service listings?
Good question. Yes, on the civil service websites related to the tests or the state, you can find all the job descriptions. So I know I've seen them in Westchester and I've seen them for New York State. I can't tell you that I've specifically looked for a library one, but all the job descriptions are posted and the keywords will be in there.
Thank you.
Other questions or we're good?
That's it for the chat.
That's it for the chat and for keywords. So let's go back to our resume. So for Bill Smith, I took the liberty of taking one of those abouts and turning it into Bill Smith's profile, where I edited a little bit. I took it from the gentleman who was from Massachusetts, experienced assistant librarian with a demonstrated history of working in the information services industry, skilled in research, event planning. I actually combined some of the others. Customer service, Microsoft Word, information technology, strong education with professional with a master's degree focused on English literature from Salem State. So Bill Smith now doesn't have a library master's, but we could probably change this. I could change this to with a master's in library science. When you're making up people, you can do this. And if I was writing master's in library science in a profile, I would write it just like that, master's in library science. I've seen a few of them written in different ways. So we've created Bill Smith's profile. Our next step is to go back and think of and identify specific content for your resume. So when you're putting in content, it's specific. And if you remember that profile, that section has bullet points. So you can do it a couple ways. You don't want a job description. Each bullet point should have as many specifics as possible. And they should be able to talk about, there's a couple of different acronyms that they can use, but they should be able to give the reader a vision of what you did. So if we go back to Bill's resume, so let's say Bill's most recent experience was as a librarian or an assistant librarian. And we're going to say he didn't work at ABC Audio. He worked at Southchester Public Library. Oops. Yeah, I'll call it Chester Public Library, just so it looks prettier. So it's on one line. So what do we think Bill did as an assistant librarian? Does anyone want to type something to chat of what Bill might have done as an assistant librarian? How would you write a bullet point? And let's see if we can edit that right now. Anybody write your favorite job task for an assistant librarian?
I'm looking at the chat.
Or a librarian. I'm looking at it too. So. And if you guys are going to have me do the work, I'm just going to make all the tasks up. So that's fine.
I guess you could say managing the physical collections.
Okay, so really good example, Krishna, but I wouldn't just say managing physical collections. I would say managing physical how many books, how many volumes?
Let's say 10,000 items. I don't know.
It's a really Christian, it's an excellent point because, and I'd probably make it more specific than managing, but just by that 10,000 items, you've given the reader an understanding of how large a library Bill works in. So it might be, and then again, so I'm going to make up the rest of this stuff. So
we got another one.
Oh,
creating, implementing, and evaluating library programs for children, teens, adults, and families. Or I guess if it was one target audience, they could list that. Another, assist with program organization and setup.
Well, let's do this one. Let's do this one first. Children, sure. Adults. Okay, so this is good. It's a good start. We're going to make it even better. So creating and implementing and evaluating 30 plus library programs each year. Because again, we've now taken that amorphous, I do programs to, oh, I do 2 a month. So again, I'm just making up these numbers, but you want something that's quantitative in here that gives a person a picture of what I do. So there's a big difference between the fact that I do these programs to this is how many programs I do. We can make it even better. Or groups of up to 75 patrons, or maybe it's groups ranging from 10 to 50 patrons. So you're now given the reader a real picture of what Bill does.
Somebody sent in one with some hard numbers for you. Ordered $14,000 of library material, including books, audiobooks, covering all genres.
Did you, I'm sorry, was the first word ordered?
Yes, ordered. Ordered $14,000 of library materials.
Books,
audiobooks, covering all genres. So I see that person was using your specific numbers, listing some details about the items.
So, okay, so if I were to make this even more specific, was the ordering based on their own recommendations, or was it based on someone else's? So if I read this, I'm thinking that someone told me to order it, so I ordered it, which may be what you did, but could it be that you evaluated? I have a new keyboard I hate. Could it be you evaluated content and library usage, and there's probably a better word for that, evaluated content of offering and library usage, meaning what's the word for how many, is there a term you use for how many fiction books get taken out versus nonfiction, or is there some kind of number? Or
I guess just like circulation statistics.
Circulation. See,
Yeah.
I knew there was a word. So we've just now changed that from I ordered it because Megan told me to I ordered it. I was told I've got a $14,000 budget, and I ordered it based on that budget. And based on my evaluation and my evaluation of content, circulation, and match to my patrons. Excellent. What else?
So we had someone say we assist with program organization and setup.
Okay. Assist is an interesting one. So assist, to make it sound a little less junior, so let's take that from that I assist with programs and to add to it. So instead of just assist with organization of programs, assist with organization of successful programs, including highlight one. And if you're going to highlight one, pick one that was appropriate for that particular job description. If we went back to that Mountain View job description, they talked about some of the specific patrons and some of the specific things that they did. So make it, again, think about, okay, what is the reader? If I just say I assisted with a program, it's like, it's my technical term for, but let's make it stronger by asking what's that specific program, or what's one specific program. And again, throw some numbers in there about how many patrons you served. And if you notice, I guess I was on a 30-day. If you don't know exact numbers, I always say, do a number close and put the plus sign.
So somebody also sent in, kept monthly statistics using Excel and provided these to the office manager. So I'm curious there about mentioning something like a software, because we have the skills section down below. Is it a good idea or a bad idea to mention, something like managing spreadsheets in Excel up there?
It's a good idea because it shows that you actually use them. So it's maintained, oops, lost my bullet point. But what were they summaries of?
I guess either attendance or circulations or some sort of library usage.
Yeah, report. Okay. Submitted's not strong enough, but I'd rather have Excel. Submitted's not very strong. Completed and submitted's not a very strong word. I'd have to think of another one.
Yeah, I think maybe. So it's about painting the picture of a more involved activity than just clicking something. Somebody in
Right.
chat suggested compiled and analyzed.
That's a good one too, but that's different. So for reporting, completed accurate monthly Excel spreadsheets of, monthly, I'm sorry. I hate when I repeat those words. Completed accurate monthly Excel spreadsheets of library usage for reporting purposes. So you did it. So what was the next one? Was analyzed, right? That was a different skill though. It was,
That was a suggestion of just compiling and analyzing monthly reports.
So compiled and analyzed monthly reports of library usage. That's different than completed. Completed is just putting numbers in. Any other specifics? So one thing that I just realized, this is Bill's current job, so it should be my mistake. It should be present tense, and past jobs, so it'll all be past tense. Unless there's one task you did. Yeah, so current jobs are present tense, past jobs are past tense. Unless there's, if you worked on, let's say you worked on, so that could be a past tense if it's a one-off event.
So how long can you get with one job description here or experience description? Sorry.
So we have just about reached the max, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would actually probably have these two. It's going to be one of this or the other. 6 would be enough because you don't want a resume that's got, here's the other thing about resumes. Resumes need to have white space. Employers don't read them. You probably don't want to hear that. But if I'm looking at a number of resumes, they zone in on things. That's one of the reasons why the profile is so important. They're going to read your profile. They're going to look at bullet points and look for those things that make sense. So the longer the content is, the less they're going to read. You've just lost them. There's another good way to think about it. Other questions about that content or other questions about compiled analysis? Okay, good.
I think we're good to move on.
So here's some really important things about other considerations. So the dates on your resume, if you're a recent college grad or recent MLA grad, you could have summer or shorter dates. If you've got a 15 or 20 year resume, today I suggest that you take months out. There's no reason for them. And then excuse me, in a hard resume, in a if you're filling something out online, they are going to ask you for dates. So you should have them. But today I just have people put years. The other advantage of just putting years is if somewhere in your career you've done some bouncing around, just putting in years are going to take away the fact that you might have been somewhere for just 6 months. The length of the resume we talked about, 1.5 pages is fine, 1 3/4 pages is fine. You have to remember that employers are not reading resumes. So what are they going to focus in on? Does your education belong on the top or the bottom? It belongs on the top if you're a recent grad. It belongs on the bottom if you're not.
Does that change at all with industry, or I guess where you're working? So if you're working in a more academic environment, does that change at all?
It probably does. I mean, I'm not talking about a classic university curriculum vitae. Those are different. Those are longer because they usually require you to list specifics about projects or publications, and those your education may be on the front. Yeah, I'm not talking about those.
Got it.
But that does bring up, I didn't open it. I'm going to open up one more because some people, if you really want to highlight skills in a different way, I'm going to open up one more resume. And the only reason why I didn't open this up before is I didn't send you that. I didn't send you the link to this or send you this before because only because this format's a little trickier to work with. It's actually really probably fine. I'm sure you guys could figure it out. But if you go into templates for resumes right now into Word and Google Docs, many of them have lists of skills. And I find that the lists of skills resumes examples in Google Docs or in Word templates, they've got too much information on them. Some of them have 3 columns and there's just way too much to look at. There's not enough white space. So for Christian, to your point about skills and education, if you want it on the top, on kind of the, be a little more highlighted, this is my next recommended format. And someone I knew, a colleague a number of years ago, referred this, and I've had more people say to me that this format, it's different, but it's not funky. There's my technical term of the day. So it's different enough, but it's not unusual and it's easy to read. And this specific template is in, I just want to see, this isn't a table. That's, so if you're good with Word and columns, you could do it. This may take some working and someone who has some knowledge of Word for you to do it. That's why you'll see the bar on the second page. A resume like this is very often going to go to 2 pages, unless you're a fairly recent grad. But again, you've got your skills and your education on the first page here. So this Chris Atwater, this is a funny person. But again, the skills for those library things, you can then put in those specific systems you've worked in, some of those specific projects that you've worked in, and the education then can be highlighted right. It's not highlighted in the top, it's highlighted in the side. For someone who's not a recent grad, I would still put the skills at top in the column and the education bottom. And I could send this through chat if you want the template, but I'm just, I didn't include it initially because it can test your knowledge of Word. So that's the best way to describe it. So what questions do you have about this format? So I'm going to put this in chat. I'll just close this right now and I'll put this in chat as we're answering other questions.
Okay. Someone pointed out to me that there are many websites that do require a month and a year when you're putting in experience. So
oh, they absolutely do.
Some situations where you can't
filling out an
avoid
application, they will ask you for the month and the year, hands down. I know that, yeah. But your resume, my experience, remember, people aren't reading resumes. The resume to me looks cleaner. There's more white space if you don't have all the months. Oh, and if you're going to put months, don't abbreviate them. Mar, Jan, Feb, put the full thing. Whatever you do in those respects needs to be consistent, but you should abbreviate. We didn't talk about some of those nuts and bolts. You should abbreviate state always. So do you have your resume in a Word or a PDF? You need both, because if you're downloading or uploading your resume into some applications or to an employer's, sometimes they don't accept PDFs. If you're sending a resume just to one person, I recommend you send a PDF. But if you're opening up a site and you're downloading it, you're going to need both. Okay, I always say save the document in more than one place. I have kind of an allergy to flash drives, even though I have them. I was writing something, this is a number of years ago, and I was saving it. It was an entire chapter of a book that I was saving the whole thing on a flash drive. My laptop fell down. The laptop was fine. The flash drive bent. I almost had heart failure. I brought it to someone, they were able to straighten out my flash drive. So I now say, I always recommend that you save your resume in more than one place, that you save it on whatever computer you've created it on, that you email it to yourself. And if you like flash drives, do it, but they're just too easy to lose, to bend, to break. But if you've emailed your resume to yourself, you can always find it in your sent email. Even if you don't file that resume in the right place, that email, you can always find it again. Oh, I've got a million other content things I can share, I can talk about. I can talk about this all day, but we were supposed to be allowing time for questions. So while you folks are adding your questions, I'm going to send you that. I will send you that document. Oh no, I can't send a document. It's not letting me.
Let me see if I have that option. Yeah, I don't think I have it activated for this meeting, so we can send it out afterwards.
Okay, no problem. So what else, what did I miss that you wanted to know about? And what else would you like to see? Or what other samples would you like to see?
Okay, folks.
You're all acting like quiet librarians. Quieter. I don't want to stereotype, but I just did.
Joanna, did you have a question?
One of the things that's covered in the job search toolkit, it's on page 6. If you've got gaps in your employment, think of a way to, if there's, let's say you cared for a relative, you can put that in your resume, as I've got it, the sample in here on page 6 of the toolkit of senior caregiver, private family, and where it was. So you can absolutely do that. You can also, if you've got gaps in your resume where you did a volunteer work, you can include that as well. They were supposed to have a lot of questions, Krishna.
Yeah, Joanna, did you have something or?
No, I just popped back into, enjoyed it, and that one website with the keywords, and that was a good resource. I'd never heard of that.
Oh, of ONET, okay.
Yeah, but you and then you suggest keeping your LinkedIn updated pretty frequently, or?
Yeah, well, there's a few reasons why you update your LinkedIn. Is when you update your LinkedIn, you become active on the site, and people are more likely to, you're going to pop up on other people's searches. So, but when you, every time you update your LinkedIn, make sure it's something you want all of your LinkedIn network to see. There's in your LinkedIn context, in your settings, there's a way that you can update all of your network or not. So you want to be searchable and recent to other people. And some of it's not just updating it. When I said updating it, I also mean commenting on an article. So I, for example, might post an article that I saw about human resources. You know, maybe I posted something about working from home, or in this case, maybe you saw something about serving patrons during a pandemic. You can post that and create a comment on it. That's a way of updating your profile. That's adding, that's being active on the site is the term that's frequently used.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I've heard of the notifications when you're updating your profile, and that it's a good idea to turn them off if you're going to be making a bunch of piecemeal edits, like editing bit by bit.
Right, because then your network gets the notification every day. Oh, good, I changed my banner picture. Oh, good, I changed the job title. Oh, good. I mean, they're going to be like, I don't really care about, what Joanna's doing anymore. I'm getting tired of hearing from her. So, yeah.
So here's a great question in the chat. Where should you list certifications? And should you list any awards and achievements?
Yes and yes. So where should you list certifications? They should be under your education because they're a form of education. And awards and achievements should absolutely be listed. So they can be listed, again, under education. They can be also listed as where they're relevant. So if at South Chester Library, you were named Librarian of the Year, it can go there. Named Librarian of the Year for 2017. If it was 20 years ago, just say earned Librarian of the Year. You don't have to say the year to make yourself younger. So yes to both. And if the certifications are essential, if you've looked at that job posting, it says must be certified. Let's say it's a technical thing, put it in your profile. Also, sometimes the same thing with bilingual. If bilingual is required, then put that in your profile. So the profile would be, I just want to look at the thing to see where we would put bilingual in there. It would be right at the beginning. So Bill Smith was an experienced assistant librarian. I would say if bilingual is required for a job, I would say experienced bilingual librarian. And then you can put comma, Spanish, English, or French, English, whatever it is. I would put that right up front. That particularly if it's a requirement, if it's highly preferred, yes, that goes up front.
Okay. I have a question about character limits on LinkedIn. So if you are filling up the space in your LinkedIn profile and it's starting to block you out from adding more stuff, what do you think, if you've seen anything like that in the past, what's a good spot to cut first, or where should you pare things down a bit?
You've got too much information in your, so in the profile, here's the other thing I realized I didn't mention the profile. You shouldn't have first person pronouns. It's not I, it's so you can there's probably a number of things that you can cut out in that profile for character limits. There is a limit on characters in the profile. So you're going to need to, and realize you're not going to have, I know this hurts a number of people, you're not going to have perfect sentences. If you look at resumes, they're not perfect sentences. They're not I, they're not even we. It's worked with a collaborative team, not we did. And so you're not going to have all those perfect sentences and the words that connect that. So to cut it, you might want to cut and paste that content onto a Word document, print it out, and see what you can edit down. It's my personal thing. It's sometimes harder to edit on a screen. Not sometimes. I find it harder to edit on a screen. I didn't say that. Also, it's really important once you complete a resume, print it out, read it on a hard copy, and have someone else read it. You will catch a typo. Someone else will catch a typo, even if it's as little as that my phony Bill Smith, I had South Chester spelled incorrectly, my made up town. So
let's say you're applying for a specific position, a specific job listing. And you mentioned using listings to build your resume and your keywords. If you use that listing at a library that you're applying to, and take the keywords of what they're looking for and use it in your resume, is that obnoxious or is that a good move?
It's a good move because they're hopefully keywords that are, if we looked at that one of those descriptions when it talked about outgoing and courtesy and good communication, it's a very good word. That's what they're looking, good move, I'm sorry. That's what they're looking for. You might as well go tell them that you have it. So we didn't talk about cover letters, but the other example in the chapter that you got is your cover letters are tailored exactly, oh look, it's on the back on page 12, exactly 3 to 5 bullet points that match your background to the job posting. So if they're looking for someone who is a really good communicator it's really good a communicator with presentations. You can write in your bullet point, effective communicator developed and successfully delivered 25 presentations. So you can be as specific and do that again. And the reason why you have the, so this is that back page. And the reason why the cover letter is these bullet points is, again, employers don't read things. So if I open this cover letter, I get to say, oh, look, Bill Smith has done these 3 things. Their eye gets directly drawn to that. And it's targeted. It's drawn right there. Oh, good. Bill Smith has what I need. Again, I didn't make up this cover letter format, but I have found my funny cover letter story is a young recent grad came in with a cover letter. I said, and a resume. I said, this cover letter is really good. He goes, yeah, I copied my brother's format. He used yours and he got a job. And I had to laugh. So, it's my funny cover letter story. Did I answer that other question about certification chat? Was there another chat question? Awards. I don't think, so, again, awards should be where they belong. Like if it's an award during school, put those under education. So sometimes people put stuff about education in various locations. Keep it all with education. It makes more sense. It includes more continuity, and the experience, the person's not bouncing around in terms of dates and what they're looking at.
Would something like top salesperson go under a like a work experience then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, but that actually brings up another point. If all of your experience is not in libraries, then I recommend if an individual is looking for a job in a specific career and their experience is in 2 different areas. I was working with a young woman the other day on Friday who had, she really wants a job in healthcare, but she's currently working as a greeter in a restaurant, and she's got restaurant experience, but she's been an EMT, she's got some healthcare experience. So when that happens, you create 2 sections for experience. One says either healthcare experience or work or just experience. It's the kind of experience you're looking for. Healthcare experience. In this case, it would be library experience, and then below it, other experience. So those things because you want to draw the reader's eye to the relevant experience. They don't need to start off reading about, actually, and this young woman also had been a babysitter, and that was the top thing on her resume. And I said, you're not getting job responses because they open your resume and the first thing they see is babysitter, or it was said childcare, but it was a babysitter job. Other questions?
I don't see anything else in the chat. So maybe some tips about LinkedIn, maybe?
Okay.
If we can branch out. Or were there other topics that you were hoping to bring to this, if you had time?
Oh, I've been recording videos all day. I have lots of topics. Actually, why don't I just go to LinkedIn? First, I have to close the 15 other things that I have open. There we go. Okay, so now my profile is far from perfect. I admit it, I freely admit it, but I did customize the background, and I work with people, so that's my background is. This is a photo that I had taken by a professional photographer who's my sister-in-law. Don't be that impressed. But I have used and have seen good LinkedIn photos that are edited from other photos. In fact, I used another example in another slideshow, in a video, in one of those videos about you can cut out the other person as long as you don't have like their hand or their shoulder. So your about needs to be a summary. And this is mine, is more about a business. So one of the other things on LinkedIn that you want to do. So one of the important things about LinkedIn is You want to join groups. Groups don't show up. So groups show up as interests now, as groups show up as interests and groups. But the other thing, and they've just made a change in LinkedIn, well, not that long ago, but is your skills and endorsements. You want to add skills. There is a maximum number of skills you can use, but LinkedIn just added a new feature. And the way to get other people to endorse your skills is you endorse them, and then they endorse you back. And then people that like you may endorse you, and then endorse people. It's another way to be active. But LinkedIn also added this feature about taking skills quizzes, and you can get badges for doing this. So I don't have any of these. Some of these are very specific, but if you've got some of these, some of the Adobe, for example, some of the, there's Word in here, like I would never consider myself. So some of them are specific. So Final Cut Pro, maybe you're good at Google Analytics. Can you do JavaScript? You know, I don't even know what some of these are. So take the quizzes and you're going to get these badges. It's a multiple choice skill. You get a little badge that you're proficient in doing that. So that's a relatively new. Definitely get recommendations on LinkedIn. The nice thing about recommendations on LinkedIn is you read them before they get posted. You sort of can edit them. And then, so some people talked about awards. You can put awards under your jobs, or you can also put awards under accomplishments on LinkedIn. And interests are groups, and you should definitely be in groups. So these are things I'm following, but there's also, where did my groups go? They changed. Oh, these are my groups. These are groups too. So these are other ways to keep active on LinkedIn. The other magic LinkedIn thing that people, so if you apply for a job on LinkedIn, so this librarian job, nope, where did the librarian job go? I've got so much open that, okay, so let me go back. I closed it. So if you apply for a job on LinkedIn, or if you even look at a job on LinkedIn, so here we go. This librarian in the state of Missouri, it's going to show you, now I'm not, whether you're connected, so how many connections you have to that job. So 2 alumni of the school I went to work there. But it's also going to show you, see, if I type in human resources, it's probably a better example. Because this is then going to show me, so this has alumni again, work there. Okay, so there's 1 alumni here, but this is also going to continue to show me no connections. Of course, now that I give you the example, it's not working. This will show you if anyone that you're connected with either works there or is connected with someone who works there. And of course, the time I show you the example, this is why I checked all those examples beforehand. Not
But
live.
it would show you almost like chain connections, like if you were
It'll
connected
show
to
you
someone.
up to 3rd connection. And then you can contact those people directly. So this is what, like I said, this is why I did that other one before, because I wouldn't have done this before. Look at that.
Would you recommend contacting people through those connections?
Yes, absolutely. The other thing I highly recommend is looking for connections. So this is another way to find people on LinkedIn. So in the search box, type the employer you're interested in. So this is New York City Public Library. Click on people. And it's going to show you people that work at the New York City Library. These are more likely to be people that are connected. Remember, it's working with your algorithm. So it's going to show me people that are connected with me. Now, again, these people don't look like they're at the library right now, but they have been at the library. So here's this person who's a second connection to me. That means she's connected to someone I know. She's the head of HR at Milk Group. I don't know what that is, but she has, I don't know why she came under my library.
I think we're looking at human resources.
Right, we're looking at human resources, but I typed in library under, hate when that happens. Okay, I'm just gonna go to library and people. I'll go to the generic. Okay, so here's the director at the Warner Library. So if I wanted to contact someone in the Warner Library, I have 5 mutual connections with her. So you can type in, so I just typed in a job category, but you can also type in more specific. So if I, so yeah, no, you see, I did this wrong. So if I'm interested in Westchester Library System, you want to click on people. It's still here. Okay, so these are probably all people that are connected with the.
You might need to hit enter up there in the search for it to go through. Or click it.
It's going to company. It's playing with me. Oh, there we go. Look at that. This worked. So it shows me my connection. It's going to show you jobs. And it's going to show you that I have second connections. It's going to show me that Terry and I aren't connected, but I'm connected to Elena, who is connected to Terry.
Okay. And I've seen importance placed on the 500 plus connections.
If you have 500 plus connections, you're considered a more active user. When LinkedIn first became popular, the recommendation was only connect to someone you know. That is no longer the recommendation. The recommendation is if someone looks, I basically say, if there's a reason why someone would want information or give information, accept the connection. If you get like a personal connection, like, hey, you look cute, I'd like to meet you, disregard that. The nice thing about LinkedIn, when it comes to networks, when it comes to network requests for connections, it's kind of, I think it is similar to Facebook in that respect. You can just ignore it. I don't think the term is ignore. The term is something else, but you don't have to accept it. They will never know it. Always look at their profile first and make sure there's something relevant in there. It doesn't have to be huge. A couple of years ago, I got requests from people that I helped employers interview, and I thought it was kind of odd, but it turned out it was great, because then if I was looking for someone similar again, let's say they'd moved, they were easy to find. So yes, so that's another way to build your connections. And this is a really good time to reach out to people and build your connections. When you're building connections on LinkedIn, never use the generic, can I connect with you? Don't let LinkedIn connect your whole address book either. That's like annoying. You want to create a specific LinkedIn request for a connection that tells the person that you're requesting the connection with what the connection is. So it's good afternoon. It's, hey, Krishna, I really enjoyed working on this program with you. We should connect on LinkedIn. So it's something specific. It's, hey, Kim, haven't seen you in 5 years, but we met at the WLA meeting at XYZ location, and I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. There needs to be, it's not long. You can't long. There's a very short character limit on those connection requests, but you need to create something that gives that person a reason for opening it and connecting.
Okay. So we're getting close to the 90 minutes here. I just have one more question, and then I think we're going to send a little feedback survey out to everyone. So interests and hobbies, where should they go? I think with the libraries, it's an interesting case too, in that some of those hobbies might tie into something like programming.
I've had this discussion with more than one person. I actually like interests and hobbies on resumes. It kind of goes with, I put them at the bottom. So bills I made up, running, auto repair, restoration, and reading mystery novels. So actually, absolutely for the library, there could be related, so if your interest is poetry and you're talking to someone who's going to do poetry slams or poetry presentations, or if your interest is, a specific kind of mystery, and you could then start a book group for that kind of mystery for them, those are perfectly appropriate because they would be in there. That can also be mentioned in a cover letter. The other reason why interests are good is they spark a connection with an interviewer. Hey, I repair cars too. What kind of cars do you repair? There's a automatic, you don't want that to take over an interview, but there is then a connection between those things. And if anyone is seriously looking for a job, the new job search toolkit also has a section of not only what to do with Facebook while you're job searching, or what to do with it, how to make Facebook, we call it work ready, but also how to use Facebook for job search. So for example, your headshot on LinkedIn should be your profile picture on Facebook. You can post articles on Facebook. You can post business articles. You can put business content on Facebook. So that's what shows up when an employer searches. Studies have shown that something like 80% of employers search your name. The thing what comes up in the top if someone searches your name is LinkedIn. Facebook is going to be up there too. Any other social media you're on. If you have done programs at a library and your name's on them, that's going to then come up too. And well, that's actually another thing I always recommend if you're searching for a job, search your name, and people are like, oh, I've never done that. Well, try it now. Which actually one other thing we didn't talk about, if you have a very common name, I met a guy named Dave Matthews once, and I was like, use your middle initial. And he said, I don't have one. I said, oh, now what? So if you've got a name that's very common, you might, or if you search it and you find 15 of them, you might want to use a middle initial.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
You're welcome very much.
You, Rebecca.
This was fun. As you could tell, I could keep talking about this one.
Megan, I'll pass it to you for the outro.
Okay. Krishna is going to be posting a link to a feedback form, and we all value your thoughts. So if you could take a few minutes to just go ahead and fill that out for us. And very shortly, you'll be getting an email from Krishna and I that will have your CEU certificate in it as a PDF. You can go ahead and fill your name in there and keep it for your records. And then the link to this form for feedback will also be in there as well if you don't have time to do it right this moment. And we hope that you will register for the December 9th program. And we hope you all have a great evening.